Hello and welcome back to the Football Snapshot. I'm Lewis Nolan, and Liverpool won a game of football, which is a nice feeling ahead of them playing PSG in the Champions League because Liverpool will need as much confidence as they can get because Liverpool have to overturn a deficit of 2-0 to actually even take the tie to penalties. But in terms of Liverpool's game on the weekend, Liverpool played Fulham, Liverpool played them at Anfield, and Liverpool won 2-0 despite making a lot of changes. But I guess the biggest talking points in the game were the performances of Rio Ngumoha, and I guess maybe from my point of view, the performance of Mohamed Salah, because I personally think that if it was up, or I think it was up, if it was up to me, I'd be playing those two against PSG. But I just want to go through a couple of things from the Fulham game, and then I might want to talk about how I would personally set up against PSG, because like I said, the biggest talking point was Rio Ngumoha. And look, he's only 17, and we have to make sure that he's not, I don't want to say not hyped up because, the talent deserves the hype, but we just have to be careful with him because we don't want him turning into, say, I'm not meaning this in a derogatory way, but another Bukayo Saka where they come through, they play every single week, and they're basically they peak by the age of 23 because Ngumo's talent is ridiculous. I mean, if you just look at the goal, the way he fakes and feints and tricks people, and I mean Castagna didn't know where he was going. He, tried to track him into the box, but then with one of the feints to the left, Castagna then moved to his right, and then that opened up the gap for Ngumoha to actually get a better shooting angle. And he bent it around another defender, and Liverpool go 1-0 up. And it was just such a brilliant goal. But I'm really pleased about that because if you think about, say, some of the players in the Premier League who play out wide, a lot of the criticism of, say, Salah is that he's not like them because he's not a one versus one dribbler or he can't beat his man. But if you have people like Jeremy Doku at Man City, I mean, Doku regularly beats his opponent, but he never generates anything in the final third in terms of he never actually contributes goals, he never contributes assists. And it's sort of, I don't want to say dribbling for the sake of it, but because it does genuinely create danger, it genuinely does create opportunities. But at the same time, you don't want Ngumoha to be that. You don't want Ngumoha just to be someone who, you know, impresses, but then doesn't do anything with, maybe Doku will create an opening but won't do anything with it. I want Ngumoha to create an opening and then do something with it. But he's doing that in the Liverpool team at the moment, and he scored a goal. His passing did surprise me. I mean, the way he linked with teammates was actually very positive and very good. I mean, if you actually think about it, Ngumoha, he looks to be a much more rounded player than someone like Jeremy Doku, and obviously his ceiling is a lot higher than Jeremy Doku. But the point is, I'm comparing those two players directly because I think that I think that Ngumoha definitely has the dribbling capabilities of someone like a Doku, but he has more about him in the final third. And if we can use that against PSG, I'm all for it because I know that it's going to be a difficult task for him to track Hakimi because Hakimi is the best right back in the world, irrespective of what you think of him personally. Because there's a lot of let's say there's a lot of unsavory stuff there. But yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge, I guess, will be can Liverpool cope defensively? Because if Liverpool want to get through, they have to actually score two clear goals, and if they don't score two clear goals, they go out. And even if Liverpool do win by two goals, it takes the extra time and penalties. So yeah, I mean, Liverpool have to score two goals, and Liverpool don't create chances very easily. We've seen that with Arne Slot's teams; they look very stale. They look very there are very few patterns of play. So if you can have someone who can actually create something out of nothing like Ngumoha, because Ngumoha can go left, he can go right, he can go down the middle, he can drive inside across the pitch, he can feint, he can create space, he can shoot, and he seemingly can pass. If you have someone like that, they're probably going to create opportunities. And PSG aren't exactly the strongest defensive team in the world at the moment. So if Liverpool can actually create chances, if say Liverpool score the first goal, maybe Anfield gets behind them properly, and maybe Anfield is able to actually, inspire one of the famous comebacks. I mean, it would be nice if that happened, but again, we still have to temper expectations with Engamo because he is a child, he's a teenager. So as much as I'm hyping him up here, I would be very understanding, say, if Arne Slot didn't select him, but I would like to see him personally. And that sort of brings me to the other flank with Mohamed Salah, because obviously Salah was left out of the team that lost against PSG in the first leg. And I think that was a mistake. I've said it plenty of times on Twitter. I've done reactions to it, and I think it probably ultimately proved to be a costly mistake. And that's not me saying that I think that Salah would have turned the first leg around or anything like that. But the point is, he didn't even bring him on. He didn't even bring Salah onto the pitch. And I think that I don't want to say it cost Liverpool the tie because Liverpool might have lost anyway, but it definitely didn't help. And I think that Salah has to start. I mean, I've seen a James Pearce article, I think, saying that Salah has to start, and I do agree with him, even though James Pearce sometimes, you know, he can make Liverpool fans annoyed with some of the stuff he writes, but I think he is right there. And look, if it was up to me, I would be starting Ngumoha on the left, I would be starting Salah on the right because, we saw with Salah's goal that when you put him in the right environment, when you have Jeremy Frimpong overlapping, underlapping, providing space, things like that, if you get Salah in the box, he'll miss chances because that's what he does. That's what most forwards do. Most forwards miss chances. Most forwards are not elite finishers. But if you get them enough chances, if you get them the ball enough in the box, then they'll do something. And look, Salah is a volume player, meaning you need to give him more of the ball. You need to give him more shots. You need to give him more opportunities to do passes, and he'll produce. And he produced against Fulham with not an identical goal to Engel. It's a little bit different, but again, a similar-ish finish, curling into bottom corner. I mean, I don't think Salah's finished. I know he's leaving at the end of the season. I know he's had a disappointing season, but I don't think he's finished. But he is leaving Liverpool, so I've had to accept that, and I have accepted it. But I still think he could do something against PSG, and I want him in the team, and I want him out wide on the right, and I want Engamo on the left. That said, I think it might have been very telling that Arne Slot only took him off. I think it was around the 85th minute, because if you look at the other players in the team that Arne Slot played, well, I mean, or rather, if you look at the players that he didn't play, Ekitike on the bench, Isak on the bench, Gravenberch on the bench, McAllister on the bench. I know that, Jones had to go off injured for Gravenberch, but I think that tells you exactly where Arne Slot's mind is. I think he's going to revert back to the same midfield, and I think that Salah's going to drop out of the team. And if I had to guess, I'd say that he might drop out of the team for Ekitike, and I think maybe. See, it's a bit difficult because I don't think Isak's ready to start yet, but I think that there's a possibility he could. I think there's a possibility that Arne Slot could do something like Isak and Ekitike up front with Wirtz and Dominic Szoboszlai behind as sort of like two number 10s. Personally, I'd be playing if Isak is ready at all, which I don't think he is, but if he is, let's say like he miraculously recovers some fitness between now and the PSG game, I would be playing Engelmar on the left and I'd be playing Isak up front and I'd be playing Salah out wide on the right. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think best case scenario, based on what I think Arnold's going to do, is Engamo on the left, Ekitike down the middle, and possibly Cody Gakpo on the right. And I think that's sort of shoehorning him in. And maybe, I mean, we've seen Engamo have a cameo. I think it was against Nottingham Forest where he played on the right, and I think he kind of contributed to one of Liverpool's offside goals. And or McAllister's offside goal, I think it was. And I think that Ngamo can do bits down that side, but again, that would make the left side very blunt because you'd have Cody Gakpo there. And I guess it might make sense having the option to bring, say, Salah and Isak on from the bench, but Liverpool are already losing 2-0. I don't see why you wouldn't start Salah. I mean, I hear the argument saying that, the tracking movements of the fullbacks is really difficult. So if you have Salah on the right, are you really going to believe that you can track Nuno Mendes across the pitch? Because we know how PSG play. PSG move the players in every single possible position. I mean, again, in the first leg, the distances that our wing backs had to jump to go onto their fullbacks were enormous. And then they started pushing their fullbacks higher. And then you saw them rotating. You saw the midfielders drop into the back line. Then you saw the fullbacks drop into midfield. And you saw the fullbacks switch flanks. You saw them pop up everywhere. And it's really hard to track. But the point is, I don't think Liverpool are going to keep a clean sheet either way. I think Liverpool, even if they win, I think they do something. I think they win 2-1, 3-2, something like that. I mean, obviously, I'd snap your hand up for a 2-0 win. I'd obviously snap your hand up for a 4-2 win because then that would take it to extra time and penalties. But my fear is that Arne Slot's not going to set up the team in the best way possible to actually win by two clear goals. And to be honest, I don't think there's much he can actually do to get the win, but I do think there are some things, and I do genuinely think that we stand a much better chance if he starts Engamo on the left and Salah on the right. Having said that, I don't think Liverpool have a particularly strong chance if Arne Slot reverts back to the midfield that we've seen all season, which is Ryan Gravenberch and Alexis McAllister, because those two have been awful. McAllister physically looks done, and Gravenberch looks like he's the old lazy version of himself that we saw on the clock because he doesn't track runners, he doesn't block shots properly. And just look at the two goals that PSG scored in the first leg. Gravenberch a lazy block that saw Doué shot deflected over Mamardashvili. And then for the second goal, he did not track Kvaratskhelia, I think. Yeah, he didn't track Kvaratskhelia, and that It may have cost us the tie ultimately because a 1-0 deficit, I think you can actually come back from a 2-0 deficit, though I don't think so. And I know that PSG had a bunch of other chances that they could have scored, but they didn't. And ultimately, the goals that they scored, I think, were from defensive lapses from Gravenberch. But, I mean, the news came out that Jones is actually training because obviously Jones got injured against Fulham, but with Jones actually in training for Liverpool, I'd risk it. I mean, I think back to the champion. Do you remember the Champions League final that the final Champions League final that Liverpool played under Jurgen Klopp, where I think he started a midfielder for Fabinho, Thiago, and Jordan Henderson, and in the final game of the Premier League season, Thiago sort of, I don't remember what type of injury it was, but he picked up a problem and then he played. I think he actually spoke out saying that he couldn't feel his foot in the Champions League final, but he did play Thiago anyway. And then I think he came off with Naby Keita, and everyone remembers the Naby Keita, the shot that went a million miles over the crossbar. But we saw that, we saw what Keita, Thiago, and Fabinho could do against Man City. I mean, it was arguably our best midfield performance of the season. And then since the Champions League final, that's a one-off game at the end of the season where you don't have to worry about next week because it's the final game. I think that Klopp should have started Fabinho, Keita, and Thiago together because even if Liverpool don't win, it would have been something nice to see, and I think Liverpool would have been able to exert a lot more control over Real Madrid and actually create more chances. But we lost that game. That game's done. And I think that in order for Liverpool to actually give themselves the best chance in the Champions League on Tuesday against PSG, I think Slot has to be brave in midfield. I think he has to start Jones and I think he has to start Dominic Szoboszlai. But we know that he's not going to do that because he showed his intentions by benching both McAllister and Gravenberch against Fulham because he's going to start him against PSG. And I don't think it's going to make a difference because as much as I love McAllister, he's been awful this season and does not deserve a place in the team. Gravenberch has been awful this season despite showing development last season, and he doesn't deserve a place in the team. And Jones and Szoboszlai, they have the ability to play forward quickly to the forward players because if you get the ball quickly to people like Salah and Ngumoha, they can do things. But if you get them the ball really slowly against a set defense, they might struggle. But it is what it is. I think the back line is fairly straightforward. I think it's going to be Milos Kerkez. I think it's going to be Virgil van Dijk. I think it's going to be Konate. I think it's going to be Jeremy Frimpong and Mamardashvili in goal, obviously. But the bigger selection choices lie in midfield and the forward line. And as much as I'd like to see Engamoa, as much as I'd love to see Salah, as much as I'd love to see Jones in midfield, as much as I'd love to see Dominic Szoboszlai in the double pivot, I don't think that's going to happen. And if I'm being really honest, I think Liverpool go out against PSG, which would be a shame. But hopefully Arne Slot surprises us and gives Liverpool a chance of progressing. But we'll see. But in the meantime, if you kindly like this video, if you would subscribe, I would genuinely love that. We reached 60 subscribers over the weekend, which I noticed. And we also had our best performing short. So let's see what happens with this one. But yeah, thank you for watching and a like and subscribe means the world to me. And let's see if Liverpool can beat PSG.